गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. We are in Amrit Anubhav, chapter 2, verse number 80, and this is the last verse of this second chapter, and it is an introduction to the next chapter, which is about the four speeches. And in the second chapter was about the glory of the Guru, and we saw how essentially the Guru and the Shishya are one. The one alone is expressing as the Guru at one place and as the Shishya at the other. In essence, both are same, but at the relative level, the Shishya feels that he is separate to the Guru, and how he must contemplate in order to recognize that he is not separate from the Guru, that he and Guru are one, that it is the one alone which is expressing as the two. This Guru doesn't have to know. This the student, the seeker, the disciple, the Shishya has to come to know this. And that whole process, that even though there is duality or multiplicity expressing, but nothing has changed in that unifying principle, the transcendental principle, the Guru Tattva or the Atma Tattva or the Paramatma Tattva or the Parama Shiva. It continues to be the same in spite of supporting all multiplicity. And that Tattva, I am, don't forget that. It's not a concept that we are talking about. Jnaneshwar Maharaj is talking about his own direct experience. He's not talking of some idea. He's not talking about a concept. He's talking about his realization. So when we are thinking about our relationship with our Guru, then this should be our disposition. That essentially we are one, and this we have to realize it in the sense that, see, realization is not a result of any efforts. Realization is your natural state. Then all you have to do, as you are exposing yourself, you are at this moment the essential self as well as the imagined self. See? So that imagination is not, from essential self point of view, there is no imaginary self. See? So where is the imaginary self? In the mind. You are thinking that I am this body, that I am this person, that I am this, and I am the Shishya, that I need a Guru, that I need realization. So when we get exposed to these type of teachings, or the words of masters, then all that is happening is the transformation of the mind. Mind is stopping to believe that it is an individual. The self doesn't need that convincing. Mind needs the convincing. The self doesn't transform, the mind transforms. And that mind which is thinking, which is essentially consciousness, but it is thinking, it is limited, and by this type of thinking, continuously contemplating on the Guru Tattva, it comes to effortlessly glide into the infinite one. And then, and that is what is called as realization. Realization is not an end product. Realization is not a product. Realization is not that is not an experience. Like waking up this morning was an experience. Going to sleep was an experience. Looking at the world is an experience. Remembering your memories is an experience. Having the vision of the Lord is an experience. Realization is not an experience, because experience requires the experiencer necessarily to be separate from the experienced. But in realization, the experiencer, the mind, his attention is on the essence of the mind, which is pure consciousness. See? So the both, the experiencer and the experience, they both merge in this experienceless experience. And this is the way Jnaneshwar Maharaj expressed his gratitude, expressed his salutations to the Guru Maharaj, the Guru Tattva. And towards that, now he says, now he introduces the next chapter in the concluding OV of the second chapter, the 80th OV. He says, Ata Jnana Deva Mahane Shri Guru Pramane Yene Fedili Vacha Rune Chauhi Vachansi. Have we read, already done the 80th verse? Completed it already? Yes or no?
Yes, Swamiji. We need to talk about meditation, Swamiji.
Oh, okay. We read all this already.
Yes, Swamiji.
Okay. So,
this is a surrender and salutation to Guru Maharaja, Swamiji.
oh, okay. So we have done that also.
Yes.
So that's fine. So in this relationship of Guru Shishya, neither dies in the death of the Shishya lies the realization of the Guru Tattva. In the death of the Shishya, the notion that I am a student, the notion that I am a disciple, this notion has to die. See? Because body is also a notion in the mind. The world is also a notion in the mind. See? So we are living with wrong notions and we have to change those notions. And for that, you can't use anything else but the same instrument, the mind. See? The wave dies only to be absorbed in the ocean. It is a deathless death. It will be an experienceless experience. It will be a realization-less realization. It will be a knowing-less knowing. There is no intermediate faculty. There is no intermediate thought which is going to make it happen. You are that. Tattvamasi. This is the surrender and salutation to the Guru Maharaj. Okay. Now there is a meditation which Swamiji has given here. To support any name and form, dormant and unmanifest, is the attribute of solid space. So this solid space idea is given only by Jnaneshwar Maharaj. It doesn't come anywhere else. Solid space is what? Is space an object? Is space an object of cognition? Is it? I'm asking. Space, air, fire, water, earth. Out of that, is space an object of cognition?
No.
No. Good. So what is space? Absence of everything is space. Absence of form is space. And that we call it as the cause of the other four elements. See how we are foolish. But Jnaneshwar Maharaj says, once we have withdrawn from all the imaginations within space, then what remains behind? Nothing remains behind. That nothingness, that absence is space. But is the space, is that nothingness existing independently? Or there is someone knowing that now there is nothing? When we say nothing, remember, nothing means emptiness or space. But when we use the word nothing, it means absence of all objects, absence of all forms is equal to nothing. Zero means there is nothing. 1, 2, 3, 4, all are absent out of it. Then it is zero. Zero by itself is absence of all other denominations, isn't it? But by itself, zero, which is nothingness, which is emptiness, it is not an object. See? If I show you this, what do you see? I see empty space. But can you see empty space without this? No. What is this? A circle. Say a circle. But this circle is appearing only because there is a conditioning of the fingers, finger and the thumb. So you say, oh, what is in between? Oh, there is no finger and there is no thumb in between. So that is empty space. What is, if these fingers are there, what is between these two fingers? There is no finger. That no finger is equal to empty space. No thing. But who's cognizing? Who is aware that there is absence of finger in between? There is nothing existing in between the two existences, relatively speaking. Someone is there, and that is the pure consciousness. So when all objectivity is erased from the mind, all forms are erased from the mind, like in deep sleep, all forms are gone. And you don't go into deep sleep, you remain aware. That is called as solid space, because someone knows everything is absent. Nothing is expressing, nothing is manifesting. There is silence. So that is the solid space. In the space alone are all forms and shapes and sizes. Meaning space supports all forms and sizes. Space supports forms because of emptiness. That is its quality. Accommodation is its quality. Gold supports forms because of fullness. So within the gold, all the possible ornaments are in their unmanifest form. See? So, which means gold is complete. Whether ornaments are manifesting or not manifesting, gold is still gold, it's complete. Nothing is lacking, or it doesn't become more or less because of the appearance of ornaments or melting of ornaments. When attention is on the gold, the differences in names and forms of ornaments are irrelevant. So when the goldsmith looks at the gold, his attention is on the essence. And when his attention is on the essence, he doesn't buy the ornament back from you. If you go to sell the ornament back to the goldsmith, he doesn't buy the ornament, he buys the gold. And a customer, when he comes to buy, he doesn't buy the gold, he buys the ornament. His attention is on the form, his attention is on the artistry, the shape, the delicate karigari that has gone into it. See? Then therefore the customer pays more money, and the gold fellow, that's immaterial. We are talking here about the attention. Customer's attention is on the form and shape. The goldsmith's attention is on the essence of the ornaments, which is gold. Same way, when attention is on space, the forms take a predominant position in our knowledge, when dvandva and multitude alone become our perception. So when our attention is on the space, how is our attention on the space? Are we going around throughout the day saying that I am in space, I am in space, this is space, this is space? No. Very simple. Remember, space supports all forms, and you have accepted yourself to be a form, this body. And this is how your attention is continuously on the space. And the moment one does that, puts his attention on this space, that I am only this much, that very moment, multitude and duality, the variety that begins in one's life. That means automatically, by putting his attention there, that will be the person's disposition. What will be the disposition? His attention will be on the multiplicity. His attention will be on the differences. His attention will be on that I am this form, there are other forms. And then that leads to fear, jealousy, anger, etc., etc., desire. Similarly, when our attention is on the conscious principle that I am, so because our attention was on the space, meaning this is the space that I am occupying, this is who I am, which led to an unhealthy conclusion. Now when our attention is on the conscious principle, in spite of the form, just like the goldsmith, his attention is on the gold. He doesn't care whether it is a beautiful crown or a necklace or a kamarband or a bracelet. He doesn't care. He says, what is the gold? How much is the gold in it? Without which that ornament is not possible. So what is the essence here, without which this form is not possible? And that is consciousness. So when our attention is on the consciousness that I am, that very moment, our obsession with the form and shape will dissolve. When our eyes try to look at themselves, just make an attempt. All the forms and shapes that it is illuminating, they start dissolving away. See? When we become aware of our mind, not thoughts, the mind. What is that substratum? What is that material out of which thoughts are getting created? Just like what is the material out of which the waves are getting created? Water. Then your attention is on water in spite of the waves. Then what is the, when we put our attention on the material, the essence of the thoughts, which is the mind. So what is the mind? When we say bring attention to your mind, we think, oh, mind, let's think. We put our attention on the thoughts. No, on the mind. Then our obsession with the thoughts will dissolve. Thoughts have a form. They appear, they stay, and then they dissolve. Isn't it? Every thought is limited in its expression. So here he says that when our attention is on the conscious principle that I am, the contour, shape and size of our body, all of them disappear. They disappear like this. In sleep also they disappear. In sleep also they disappear. You are not aware of your shape, you are not aware of your body, you are not aware of your size, you are not aware of your age, you are not aware you are beautiful or ugly, fat or thin. The shape of our body is because of the space. I have already mentioned that when our attention is on the emptiness, shapes and sizes are perceived. And how does it begin? It doesn't begin by looking at the outside space. It begins at a personal level, that this is, I have accepted myself to be only occupying this much space. And that occupation, whatever is occupying that particular thing, is the body. We have to get out of this. We have to expand out of this. We have to hijack ourselves out of this default setting that I am only this body. Because only this body, therefore all the problems have begun in our life. That we are not happy all the time, that we are, even though we are of the nature of bliss, we are not experiencing the bliss. Although we are our knowledge is our nature, yet we are seeking knowledge. We are afraid of death. We are excited when something good happens. We become susceptible to likes and dislikes, differences. All this is because of this only. We are not accepting who we are. We have accepted ourselves wrongly. And what is that wrong? We have accepted ourselves to be this much space, that I am only this much. And with that begins our importance giving to all the forms. From that very moment it begins. So, the consciousness that I am supports this body not only by means of in and out, but because of in and out. So there is space inside the body and there is space outside the body. Outside the body is very easy. Inside the space, if space is the space, air, fire, water, earth are the elements which have gone into making this body, the maximum portion that is occupied by the body, in the body by any element, is the space only. See, you look at any particle of the body, it will be 99.9% space. Not only of this body, of anything. But when we look at where is your mind, you don't look outside, you look inside. Where is your stomach, where is your heart, where are your kidneys? You look inside. It's inside. You don't say that it is outside. my kidneys are in my husband. You don't say that. Only if you are donated. But we feel there is an inside and there is an outside, and that is establishing the the, uh, uh, that is establishing the body. We perceive the shape of the body because of undue importance given to this body. In fact, the body is in me like any other object, that consciousness I am. So, when our attention goes to this much space, then in and out, I am other than, I am different to other bodies, everything is other to me. I am limited, I am conditioned, I was born, I will die, I am growing, I am old, I am now, I am not a child, I am not a teenager, I am not a youth, and whatever. All these thought diarrhea keeps coming out because of acceptance that I am this, occupying this much space. But the truth is that, see, think of it in this manner. When you are in a dream, in dream also you have a body. The body in the dream is also part of the dream. And the dreamer that you have taken one body out of all the bodies in the dream to be I. And the moment you take it to be I, from that very moment, all other everything in the dream becomes other than that body. See? And then you discard that body when you wake up. Same thing you are doing here also. You are of the nature of pure consciousness, infinite consciousness, and you have accepted in this phenomena that I am only this body. And therefore, the journey of differences, the journey of sense of otherness, the journey of survival, it begins from that moment onwards. I have told this many times, but I'll repeat it again. The whole world we interact with how? This is a computer. I know this is a computer. I am not the computer. This is a tree. I know this is a tree. I am not the tree. This is an animal. I know this is an animal. I am not the animal. And this is how we interact with the entire world, sentient or insentient, including the dream. That was a dream. I know that was a dream. I am not the dream. So I am free. The moment I wake up, I forget everything because I am not that. See? But when it comes to this body, this is a body. I know this is a body, but I am the body. You have to apply the same rule of engagement with everything. But when it comes to this body, the rule of engagement changes. Either you say that I am this body, then every body also I am. Either you come to this conclusion. Or if I am not the computer, I am not this body, I am not this tree, I am not this animal, then this body also I am not. Anything that you are able to think about, I am not that, then you come to this conclusion. But we know we have an inverted position that I am this body, and thus we live our whole life as a slave of this body. See? Then we want our choicest food, we want what we like, we want comfort, we want this, we want all those things. It's only a question of catering to this body so that this body should be comfortable till the last breath. It should have, so when our attention is on the body, when our attention is on this body, but which aspect of the body? It's on the breath or on the mind, then our approach will be a little bit different, but it is still on the body only. And as long as we keep this inverted position that I am in the body, till then duality, multiplicity, slavery to the body, it will continue. Then what you have to think? That the body is in me. I am supporting the body. If I am not there, body cannot exist. What has happened to the dream body? It's gone out of existence. Because it appeared only for the moment. So you woke up. So are we afraid to wake up? But we wake up every day. We go to dream every day. Without any second thought, we go to sleep and drop this body every day. But it is happening out of default settings. We have to bring it about consciously. So let the process happen, but you remain aware. Now you find out ways by which you can remain aware when naturally, effortlessly, the mind is dropping the body. Every day it is doing it. And recognize. Only recognition is required. That this process of identifying with the body and disidentifying with the body, it's happening every day. But you as the consciousness are a continuous principle. So that which is not continuous, what is that? Identification with the body, with this physical body is not, waking body is not continuous. It is absent in dream, it is absent in deep sleep. So don't be too obsessed with it. So here Swamiji says, in fact, the body is in me like any other object. That consciousness I am, meaning in other words, another way to look at it is, this body idea is in me. Is a concept of the mind. Let's not talk about consciousness. Let's come to the mind only. But come with this understanding that mind is, in essence, is consciousness. An ornament in essence is gold. A wave in essence is water. Wave cannot exist independent of water. Ornament cannot exist independent of wave. The body cannot exist independent of the mind, which is essentially consciousness. But mind, consciousness is continuous. Phenomena called mind is not continuous. Because you know mind as mind only when you have thoughts. So you are continuously saying, oh, this is the dream world, there is a thought, now there is no thought, there is a thought, there is no thought. And where are these thoughts and no thoughts happening? Oh, it's in the mind. That's what we say. isn't it? So how do you know the body? By the thought. And the rule is that cause itself is expressing as many effects. Gold itself is expressing as many ornaments. Water itself is expressing as many waves. Similarly, mind itself is expressing as many thoughts. In other words, consciousness, if mind is nothing but consciousness is in essence, then every wave also is pervaded by the consciousness. Which consciousness? Individual consciousness or infinite consciousness? Is the wave pervaded by the infinite water or the individual water? See, our approach in thinking is wrong. So, wave is pervaded by the infinite waters. Same way, the thoughts which are individual, which are temporary, which are just appearing for a moment and then going away. Every thought, can it have an existence apart from the consciousness? No. From water's point of view, there is no wave. From consciousness point of view, there are no thoughts. Because from that one without a second principle, which is pure consciousness, it alone is. So, truly speaking, when we take this position that the body is in me, meaning all the phenomena is happening within myself. But for that, your attention has to be on the self, on the conscious principle. Then we will have no desire for the world, for anything in the phenomena. Phenomena means that which comes and goes, that which is temporary. Our desires are only for the temporary, for the ephemeral. See? So bring your attention back. So this is the Anvaya sadhana we are doing now. So in this particular, not what is written, but what I am saying is the Anvaya sadhana. That everything is included in the consciousness. Nothing is outside of consciousness. Consciousness is, we can't even use the word everything is included because consciousness is always complete. But in that consciousness, the phenomena is happening. In that pure consciousness, the phenomena is happening. In that infinite waters, the phenomena of waves is happening. See? Till here, when we say that the phenomena happened, and when the Lord says that I created the world and I entered the world. So I created the world out of myself and then I entered into the world. So all the multiplicity came out of consciousness, and then it's just to speak, just to communicate, and then the pure consciousness is saying, and I entered everything that I created. I created the thought and I entered the thought. It is simultaneous. It is not having a lag. It is not having a lag. It is not that first creation was and then the consciousness came in. It is not like the lamp was created first and then the light came. That is how we perceive the world. First woman becomes pregnant and then the childbirth happens. No, here it is spontaneous, simultaneous. Because the creator is also, from God's point of view, creator is also it, and the Manifestation also is it. See? When we saw in the first chapter, the Paramashiva, when he expresses as Shiva and Parvati, Shakti, it is simultaneous. It is not that first Shiva came and then Shishya came. Shakti came. It is not that first Guru came, then Shishya came. No. Guru is called a Guru only when Shishya is there. If there is no Shishya, there is no Guru. If you are not standing in front of the mirror, there is no reflection. No. Oh, you go away and the reflection continues. Not possible. Understand, all these examples that I am giving is to show that the whole world is within you. You are pervading the entire creation because you are that one without a second principle in essence. And when, just like Paramashiva is called Shiva and Shakti, that same water is called ocean and wave. Same way that pure consciousness is called in every thought. There is a subject and object, and that subject is the expression of that consciousness, and the object is also the object is the expression of that consciousness. But where is that manifestation of consciousness as the I thought and the that thought, aham and idam? It is happening in the phenomena. When this subject and object become one, we are back to the source. We have to break this chain of subject-object relationship. So no thought in the mind can appear without the I. Think, no thought can appear in the mind without the support or identification or the availability of the I. There has to, for seeing there has to be a seer, for hearing there has to be a hearer, for experience there has to be an experiencer, for waking there has to be a waker, for dreaming there has to be a dreamer. For every thought that erupts in the mind, at that very moment, a thought cannot come without the I. Thought cannot come without the I. And this is a phenomena. And you have accepted yourself to be the phenomena. You have accepted yourself to be the phenomenal I. In Panchadashi, that phenomenal I is called as the illusory I, Mithyatma. And who are you? The Mukhyatma. Just like as a woman here or a man here who is listening, you have accepted yourself to be the wife or the husband. Why? Because you are identified with the person opposite. So out of you, this imaginary, illusory role manifests, which is called a husband. It has its own characteristics. On account of the husband or a wife, the partner is miserable or happy or excited or depressed. But woman or man is not. They are independent. When it comes in front of that man, she becomes a wife. When it comes in front of another woman, she becomes the daughter. Another person, she becomes the mother. But the woman continues to be the same. The problems are not with the woman. Problems, challenges, duties, responsibilities, memories are not for the woman, are for those illusory expressions, imaginary expressions. And where are those expressions? Existing in their own absence. Now, if you understand this example, go one step back. that thought is the phenomena, consciousness is the continuous principle. Replace woman with pure consciousness. Replace that consciousness, just like the woman identified with man considers herself a wife, similarly consciousness identified with the object of cognition, whatever it is associated with as real, then it becomes a thinker or seer or hearer. Continuously it's changing. Right now hearer is expressing, or the seer is expressing, or the speaker is expressing here. See? Now, this phenomena we cannot stop, but we can do one thing, and that is ascertain the right understanding of this of this I. Am I the I who is identified to form? Am I the I who is identified to coming and going of the form? Or am I the I which is the witness of the form? Or am I the I which is ever free, independent, one without a second, supporting? Well, I am as a speaker here, I am saying supporting all the phenomena of coming and going. But once I have come to abide in my essential nature, then our attention from all the forms will automatically be pulled back. Forms will not be available to us. Just as waves are available only on the surface of the waters. The deeper you go, no waves. So the deeper you go into the consciousness, as the consciousness, that is what is said as Uddharet Atman Atmanam. The more we become subjective, the more our mind contemplates on this consciousness in this manner. To that extent, we are the persecution of the forms and shapes is not there. And this is exactly what is happening in deep sleep. It is exactly happening in deep sleep. See? Understand the principle. You are focused here right now, and your obsession with all other forms in the house, including your body, depending upon how much you are available at this very moment, will determine how much you are attached to what is going, everything around you. Some people while sitting sit in meditation. Some people sit and they are knitting. Some people have their earphones on their ear and they are continuing to do all other work in the house. Some people are sitting, eyes are open, listening is taking place, but they are in the meditative poise, unmoving, completely still. See? So we are not saying don't do this or don't do that or do this, because doing is not happening because of you. Doing is in the phenomena. Happening is in the phenomena. You be the consciousness without which the phenomena cannot express. without which the phenomena of the mind. And how do you know there is a mind? The interaction between the subject and the object, aham and idam. That's how you know there is a mind. So recognize, that's all. Nothing else needs to be here done. Without the vision of non-dual existence, absolute divine love cannot manifest. Where there is separation, meaning where there is a distance between subject and object, love cannot express. Until and unless the subject becomes part and parcel of the subject, object becomes part and parcel of the subject. So what have we been talking? That the entire multiplicity is within the mind, and mind is nothing but consciousness. So in other words, within the consciousness only the entire multiplicity is supported. When this comes, then unconditional love, because then there is nothing other. Read the 4th and 5th verse of the 9th chapter. What does he say? What does he say there? One moment. In the 4th and 5th verse, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina matstani sarva bhutani na chaham teshva sthitaha. All this is pervaded by me of unmanifest form. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Who is saying? The consciousness that I am is saying. Then, nacha matsthani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram bhuta brunna cha bhutastho mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Nor are the beings in me. So first he said that all beings are in me, but I am not in them. Consciousness is saying, I am in all the forms, but the forms are not in me. The gold is saying, I am in all the ornaments, but ornaments are not in me. When our attention is on the infinite, from infinite point of view, there is no finitude possible. Nor are the beings in me. Behold my divine mystery, thou the sustainer and the protector of beings, yet myself is not in these beings. Even though I support all the beings, I support all life, I support all forms, yet I am independent. I am ever complete. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. It's nothing has happened, yet everything is going on. Nothing has happened, yet waking, dream, deep sleep is going on every day. Because consciousness is complete. Our attitude towards waking should be like that towards the dream. Not while you are in the dream, but when you wake up from the dream. Complete, shift, delete. But we have taken it so seriously that this life is so real. It's only on account that I am the body. Without the vision of non-dual existence, absolute divine love cannot manifest. Love can manifest only where there is no differences. Where there are differences, there is compassion, there is daya. Daya presupposes that I am higher than the one whom I am showing compassion to, on which one complete religion has been made. Sanatana Dharma doesn't accept that. Sanatan Dharma accepts that we are complete. We don't have to show compassion. We have to show unconditional love. Compassion is from one to the other. But the other is not there. Whom will you show compassion to? There is no logic in this love. And when everything is included in the consciousness, when everything is included in the consciousness, and you have included your husband in the consciousness of I, or wife in the consciousness of I, or your children in the consciousness of I, that they are my children, they are my husband, my wife, my parents, then even if they do wrong, even if they are murderers, but still it is my child. The love continues. Even if they are going the wrong way, but it is my child. Because there is no logic. When we are not being able to, we don't see them as separate from ourselves. We see them either with regards to parents, we see ourselves as an extension of them, or with our children, we see ourselves extending into our children. See? So we have included whatever is included in the definition of I, towards that we love. I am the body, so I love my body. This is my husband, so I love the husband or wife. These are my children, so I love my children. These are my parents, I love. Were you born with the husband? No. You learned how to love. Were you born with the children? No. They manifested. And because you included them in your definition of I, so the love is there. That love which we are talking about is your natural disposition towards the child. That is the love. But you having sleepless nights on account of that child is attachment, is infatuation. Do I punish my hand for scratching the leg? These examples are there. The teeth biting the tongue, or the eye, finger poking the eye. Do I cut the finger? Do I pluck the teeth out? No, the same teeth go and help the tongue. Do I punish my hand for scratching the leg? No. In the duality of the scratcher the hand and the scratch the leg, there is no duality, because the scratcher hand is also I and the scratched leg is also I. The finger which poked the eye and hurt it, the finger also I am, the eye also I am. So there is no animosity. And there is no compassion. It's a natural response that the same finger which hurt the eye goes and rubs and makes it normal. It's natural. That is love. And it happens without a thought. You don't have to think, should I or should I not use this culprit finger to rub the same eye? You don't think that way. See how we are going wrong in our daily thinking. Should I or should I not make friends with this person? Should I or should I not help this person? Should I or should I not feed this person? And it goes on and on and on and on and on. In the same way, in this non-dual existence, that I am, love, forgiveness and acceptance is as natural. Why only stop there? Attachment is a detached existence that it is not attached to anything, is its natural state. त्यागे नहीं के अमृतत्व मानसु. Nivrittinath Maharaj, we heard how Jnaneshwar Maharaj was explaining his Guru Maharaj, that he is that transcendental Guru Tattva. Not that nivritti, not that dispassion, withdrawal, which is opposite of involvement. No, he is the supreme withdrawal. That's why I read those verse 4 and 5. The Lord says, I am supporting the entire world of forms, but I am independent. I never supported, neither I am expressing through it, because from his point of view, the world, which is ephemeral, which is a phenomena, is not existing. From the infiniteness of the ocean, the waves are minuscule, not even worth thinking about. Insignificant. That is our nature. And how much importance we are given to the form? क्या हो गया? In the same way, in this non-dual existence, that I am love, I am forgiveness, I am acceptance, is as natural as it is natural for the river to flow to the ocean. As natural it is for the finger which poked the eye, without a moment lapse, the same finger again goes and helps the eye to become normal. The same teeth which bit the tongue, the same teeth without a moment lapse go and soothe the tongue back to normality. That is love. That is unconditional love. That is not love after thinking, should I or should I not? See? So here when it says that as it is natural for the river to flow to the ocean, so the flow of the finger back to the eye to help it, it's natural. Is that our disposition with regards to... I don't want to use the word wrong sentence, because when I say is that our disposition, again I am taking a relative position. That is our natural position. When we are expressing through the mind, then it becomes an unnatural position. Then we have to practice love. Then we have to show by kissing, smooching, hugging. That is show off. That is not the natural. Because sometimes you will do it, sometimes you will not. So much thought process. Should I call that person or should I not call that person? And he who experiences this ekameva advitiyam satyam jnanam anantam brahma does not get fulfilled by the satisfaction of desires, but the desires find fulfillment in him. See how beautiful? An individual is living a life of satisfying his desires. If I don't work, how will I eat? Desire to come to a satsang. Desire to go to sleep. Desire to wake up. Desire to maintain relationships. Desire for food. Desire for water. Desire for whatever. Everything is expression or desire only at the phenomena, at the worldly level. For whom? For the individual. For the individual. So we are continuously, we fulfill one desire, next one comes up. We fulfill that, the next one comes up. We fulfill that, next one comes up. So we are continuously running and running and running and running to fulfill. The list never concludes. Look at those people who go to the slot machine, or those who go to the casinos, or gamblers, or in the share market. They put $100, and it always happens to all the newcomers. The first time they go, they make a lot of money. Now they are hooked. Now, the next game that I play, that will give me the bonanza. If this partner of mine, this husband or wife of mine was not what I wanted, divorce. The next one will give me a better life. And you have not changed anything inside of you, but you are expecting a better life without having undergone any transformation within yourself. You will get exactly the same again. You will get exactly the same again. Your fears will come true. That's what happens in majority of the individuals. Whatever they get focused on, that becomes their reality. I don't want this type of husband or wife, and that if you keep thinking about that, then that only way you will get attract to you. So, as an individual, we are only living life to satisfy our desires. But when we recognize that we are the pure consciousness is the essence, it is the substratum, it is the material that has gone into, that is the only material, one without a second principle, and it is of the nature of existence. That means I am continuously existing. I am all knowledge because I know I exist. Even at this moment, I know that I exist. There is no doubt about it. And when that I know I exist and I know I exist, right now, if you have this feeling that I exist, but that is being reiterated through thoughts, not as being. When it is independent of thoughts and you come to know that you are and you know you are, that very moment the bliss will express. When subject and object merge, when right now we are interacting, I am not the body, or I am not the mind, I am not the breath, but here what are we doing? I am everything. I am one without a second. In other words, Aham Brahmasmi. Brahmasmi, Brahman is with regards to the outside. Aham is with regards to inside. That the inside and outside is one. Just like the space inside and the space outside is one. Aham is the expression of consciousness within, and Brahman is the expression of consciousness without. Aham Brahmasmi is I am. I is Brahman. So, right now, I am the subject and Brahman is the object. But when this statement, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, that subject and object are one. In spite of the words. So we have to go to what they are indicating. When that happens, in such, and that is our natural state, Aham Brahmasmi. In such a person, all the desires seek fulfillment. That is why those people, those masters who are abiding in this knowledge, where knowing is being, anyone goes, their their problems are solved. They feel at content, they feel at peace, they feel taken care of, they feel infinite love from such masters, which even their parents can't give them. See? Because there the duality of subject and object is not there. That is the what do you call, that is the goal that we have to reach in our life. Again, when I use these words, again I am coming down. We have to reach. Till now I have been saying that is our natural state. So be that all the time. And from this poise, you express in the world that everything is included in me. Then you don't have to do anything. Then you don't have to improve the world. Then let the Lord choose how this equipment is going to work. Then it is a collective whatever. It is His will. Then there is no comparison. This equipment is used for this satsang lecture. I can never be the doctor in the sense of medical profession. He has chosen you to be in that. Be that. Something, and in the phenomena, something is always happening. Don't get obsessed with the phenomena. That's all. Remain with yourself. The more we remain with ourselves as ourselves, the true essence, then whatever is dropping, let it drop. Whatever is coming, let it come. You're not fighting why my eyes are looking, why my ears are not looking. That's the job of the eyes, to look. The job of the ears is to hear. The job of the nose is to breathe. Same way in phenomena, everything has its own place. You can't wear a necklace on your ankles. It has its place around the neck. So this is about phenomena. In phenomena, these things are happening. Let them happen. They are happening by themselves. When phenomena is accepted as other than by the subject, then all challenges begin. When the subject contemplates on his essence, then his attention weans away from the phenomena. Then automatic integration, synchronization of the phenomena takes place. What is synchronization or integration of the phenomena? That phenomena becomes the expression of the totality of the Ishvara, of the divine. Then no word, no act, I'm talking from phenomenal point of view, no action can be out of integrity, can be adharmic. An individual, as much as he may try to be righteous, he will keep making mistakes, because his premise is there, I am and the world is separate. I am in this world. No integrity. And to bring this integrity about, people do puja, people do japa, people do havan, people do meditation, people do yoga, pranayama. All this is to bring about this integrity. But all of them fall short of the final consummation. This is the final consummation, where you accept that you are the infinite without a thought. So here he says that that such a person does not get fulfilled by the satiation of desires, but the desires find fulfillment in him, just as all the rivers flow into the ocean, which is already full up to the brim, to discover fulfillment for themselves and not for the ocean. So who is finding fulfillment? Why? The river which was running from the Himalayas to the ocean, traversing thousands of kilometers, and ocean was complete. Ocean is not running anywhere. River is running. See? And once it merges into the ocean, it loses its identity. And if it had recognized that the essence of mine, I'm talking about the river, that the essence of mine and the essence of the ocean is the same, water, then will it stop the running of the river? The river will still continue. The journey of the river will still continue, but not out of a desire now. Then it's a phenomena. It's happening. Let it happen. It has already realized that I am water. This is how the Mahatmas live. They allow the body to continue whatever its natural conclusion is, because body is the phenomena. They are abiding in their essential nature, witnessing everything. Not giving opinions, not giving comments, not wanting to improve the world. Then just like our finger hurt the eye and the same finger went and hurt, similarly when situations come, depending upon whoever comes, if the response comes out of them, not because they desire or they want, if the response comes, they answer, they heal, they say some soothing words. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come. There's no guilt. There's no expectation that they have to do something or not do something. That is our nature. The one without a second. This is called Brahmic Sthiti. This is inclusive of everything and exclusive of nothing. This I am. So our disposition at this moment, where I feel I am a part of this world, I have to improve the world, that I have to realize, start taking till now if it has not worked, take a different position. That I am that which is inclusive of everything. Nothing is outside of me. Now, rather than refuting how this statement is false, find ways and means and see its symptoms in your life, or put it into practice by thought, word, and speech, thought, word, and action, deeds. The expression that everything is in me, nothing is outside of me. And when you are thinking this thought, don't think yourself as the body. Think of yourself as the consciousness. And even if it is at the body level, as our scriptures say, the outside sun is the right eye, the outside moon is the left eye, the Vishnu is the feet, the Indra is the hands, the Shiva is the heart. So all the gods, all the nakshatras, all the planets, they are inside of you only. Each has a particular place, organ. But again, we get lost in separation. We are here, our attention is on the consciousness. that I am the all-inclusive principle. In other words, accept everything as I, reject nothing as I, and retain nothing as I. Because retention will mean memory. Memory is possible only in duality, where there is duality. Wonderful, no? So this is called the Brahmic Sthiti. This is the state, this is the poise in which the Mahatmas are established. And from there, the phenomena is taking place. Waking, dream, sleep, speaking, not speaking, healing, not healing, study, reading, chanting, whatever, by the will of the infinite, whatever is happening, let it happen. But they are not obsessed with the phenomena. They are established in the self. When I say this, don't come to this conclusion that they are afraid of the phenomena, therefore they are not thinking of the phenomena. Thinking of phenomena will be the job of the mind. The one who is established in the pure consciousness, he is not affected by what mind is thinking or not thinking. He is not affected. He is not influenced, I should say it that way. Just like space is not influenced by day or night, space is not influenced by a gentle breeze or a tornado. The space does not whirl with the tornado. Space does not get wet with the rain. Exactly the same way. I am that who is uninfluenced by the phenomena. Phenomena is continuing, let it continue. You are not available to it. So be the solid space. That is the Brahmic Sthiti. So this was a 1.5 hour long meditation. Read this again and again. If you have the book, read it again and again and again and again. Or listen to how I have elaborated it. Listen to it. And only interact with this information on the paper or through listening to it. Once you are with yourself, drop it. Drop the book, drop the recording. Because that's only to help you to be with yourself, to contemplate in the right manner. It is not, self is not a result of any means. Self is self-established. Self does not need any instrument of knowledge. It does not need any support. It is not because I will study this, Swamiji said, study this again, so then I will come to know. No, you are already that. Then why are we saying that please study it or listen to it again? Because you are not being that, even if you are that. You are allowing the phenomena to influence. We have been enslaved by the phenomena. We have to find a poise where we are independent of the phenomena. And that process, if this has not worked, the process and a practical exercise will be given in the next chapter. Next week we will see the summary of this chapter of the glory of the Guru, Sri Guru Stavana, and then we'll move on to the third chapter. ॐ पूर्णमदा पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ Just sit quietly. Hari Om.
Hariom Swamiji.
Hari Om Swamiji.